Yourself is just a well-installed program. Terence McKenna. Before we begin, here's a small ritual. Write in the comments one word that accurately describes your current state. Sign it, and let's get started. There comes a moment when you stop and realize the life you've been living doesn't feel like yours. Not entirely, not deeply. On the surface, everything might look fine. You're functioning. You've done things right. You've checked the boxes. But under all that, something's missing. Something essential. A quiet discomfort follows you, like a low background noise you can't quite shut off. It shows up in those silent hours when no one's watching. It whispers in moments that should feel joyful but don't, and it starts to dawn on you. Maybe the reason you feel off isn't because there's something wrong with you, but because you've been living a version of yourself that was never really you. From the moment we're born, we're shaped, not gently, not with awareness, but by force, repetition, reward, and punishment. Be a good boy. Don't be too loud. Say thank you. Don't cry. Don't talk back. Sit still. And slowly, without knowing it, you begin trading pieces of your authenticity for the illusion of approval. You adjust, adapt, modify. You become what's expected. Not because you're fake, but because it's what kept you safe. Because the cost of not fitting in when you were young was simply too high. You learn early to be accepted, you must abandon parts of yourself. And so you do, again and again, until the mask becomes your face. But here's the reality no one likes to admit. What you call yourself might actually be a set of instructions written by other people. A list of unwritten rules you were never allowed to question. Family roles, social roles, gender expectations, cultural programming, religious guilt, educational obedience. Even the algorithm on your phone is constantly teaching you how to be. You're told what to wear, what to feel, what success means, what beauty looks like, what's worth your time, and what's not. It's a constant stream of subtle messages telling you, this is right, this is wrong, this is how to belong. And you've followed them. Of course you have. That's how humans survive. We're wired to adapt, but the price of adapting for too long is disconnection. The longer you ignore your truth to play the right role, the less you remember who you were before the role began. That's why so many people wake up in midlife completely lost. It's not a crisis, it's a signal, a call, a quiet rebellion from the parts of you that refuse to die silently. And the tragedy is, most people never respond to that call. They numb it. They chase success. They read more self-help books. They go to therapy to fix themselves, without ever asking if what they've been trying to become is even worth becoming. Here's something most psychologists won't tell you. The system doesn't want you to be free. It wants you to function, to fit, to perform. And even the healing world has its traps, constantly whispering that you must improve, heal, upgrade, optimize. But what if healing isn't about becoming better, but about becoming real? What if your sadness isn't a flaw, but a map? What if your rage is a boundary that was never allowed? What if your numbness is a form of grief for the self you lost? You've been trying to feel normal in a world that trained you to disconnect from your own soul. That's why the tools don't work. That's why you've read all the right books and still feel stuck. That's why positive thinking only scratches the surface. You're not broken, you're exhausted from carrying the weight of a self that was designed to please everyone but you. And the more you try to function in that design, the more disconnected you become, because it was never yours to begin with. This isn't about blame, it's about clarity. No one handed you a manual and said, here's who you must become. It happened silently, through 1,000 micro-messages, through the fear in your parents' eyes, through the way teachers praised compliance, through culture telling you who wins and who loses, through your own nervous system learning, again and again, that authenticity equals danger. And so you chose safety. Of course you did, but safety is not the same as aliveness, and sooner or later, the soul demands more. By the end of this video, you'll understand what's been shaping you without your consent. You'll see how systems, families, ideologies all serve one function: to create predictability. And real aliveness is never predictable. Real identity can't be controlled. That's why everything in your life that feels stale or lifeless might not be a sign of failure, but a sign that your spirit is outgrowing the instructions. The idea of success has been sold to you as if it were oxygen. You're told that without it, you're failing at life. But success, as defined by the outside world, is just another instruction. A curated image of perfection. Wealth, status, productivity, happiness on demand. And yet, how many of the people chasing it feel truly alive? How many wake up with a sense of purpose that isn't borrowed? The truth is, you can reach everything they told you to reach and still feel empty. Because the success you're chasing might not be yours. It might be a performance for an audience that's not even watching. Even growth, even healing, even therapy can become a new mask. You try so hard to get better, to fix yourself, to be high vibe, but the pressure to always improve can become a prison. You swap one instruction for another and call it transformation. You journal, you meditate, you read the books, you do the inner work, but it all starts to feel like a task list, like you're never enough, like healing itself became another performance. That's not liberation. That's self-help in service of the same system that broke you. There's a deeper mechanism at play. You've been conditioned to believe that if you just find the right method, the right mindset, the right routine, you'll finally feel whole. But what if that's another illusion? What if the part of you that feels incomplete isn't broken, but silenced? And the solution isn't to repair it, but to listen to it. This is what most systems won't tell you. Wholeness doesn't come from becoming more. It comes from remembering what you abandoned. It's not about upgrading. It's about returning. And that's uncomfortable, because it means facing parts of yourself you were taught to hide. Your anger, your fear, your grief, your shame. The moments you still carry in your body, even if your mind pretends to be over them. You don't need more techniques. You need more truth. And truth starts where performance ends, where you stop trying to be impressive and start becoming honest. That's why so many people feel worse before they feel better. Because waking up from a false identity feels like dying. And in a way, it is. It's the death of the mask, the death of the loyal, obedient self you built to survive. Here's the paradox. The more you try to improve yourself according to external standards, the further you drift from your real self. The more you chase becoming good enough, the more you reinforce the lie that you're not already whole. That's why the healing journey, if done through the lens of external pressure, often turns into a loop. You keep digging, fixing, upgrading, while never questioning the map you're using. But the real breakthrough begins when you stop chasing permission. When you stop asking, "Is this okay?" and start saying, "This is real." The world doesn't need a better version of who you're pretending to be. It needs the truth of who you already are. And to access that, you have to get quiet. You have to get honest. And you have to get angry at the lie that told you to abandon yourself in the first place. So what's left when you strip away the roles, the masks, the performance? Who are you beneath what you've been trained to be? That question is terrifying. Not because there's something wrong with you, but because you've never been allowed to ask it without consequences. From early on, we're told that identity is a destination, a job, a title, a relationship, a belief system, something solid, something others can understand and approve of. But real identity isn't a fixed shape. It's not a label. It's a living, breathing experience that shifts, breaks, reforms. It's messy, it's contradictory, and it rarely fits into boxes. That's why the world teaches you not to trust it, because systems hate unpredictability, and your real self is unpredictable. Your soul isn't interested in fitting in. It's not trying to meet expectations. It's not here to play nice. It's here to grow, to shed, to feel, to experience. And sometimes that growth looks like chaos, like pulling away from people who once defined you, like dropping beliefs that used to give you meaning, like questioning the very foundation your life was built on. That's not a breakdown, that's a return. But the world doesn't see it that way. It calls it instability, immaturity, depression, because the world only validates what it can control. What makes this journey so disorienting is that your nervous system doesn't know the difference between authenticity and danger. It only knows what's familiar. So, even when you begin to step into what's real, your body might resist it. It might pull you back toward comfort, toward approval, toward the very roles that suffocate you. That's why so many people sabotage their own liberation, not because they don't want it, but because they've been wired to fear it. And until you see that clearly, you'll keep mistaking discomfort for failure when it's actually the first sign of freedom. You weren't born to live by scripts written in fear. You weren't made to silence your truth just to make others comfortable. You were never meant to carry the emotional weight of your family, your culture, your past. But you did, because you had to. And now, for the first time, you get to ask a different question. What if I stopped trying to be who I was trained to be? What if I let myself unravel? What if I stop pretending I know who I am and start finding out? The only way to do that is to stop performing. Not just outwardly, but inwardly. To stop narrating your experience based on what would make sense to others. To stop editing your emotions to stay balanced. To stop filtering your truth to keep things peaceful. Peace built on suppression isn't peace. It's quiet desperation, and your body knows it. That's why it aches. That's why you feel numb. That's why the anxiety doesn't leave. It's not random. It's a message, a knock on the door of everything you've tried not to feel. If this resonates, if something in you feels both scared and relieved, it means a part of you is ready to drop the performance, ready to meet the parts of you that never had a voice, ready to stop following instructions that were never meant for your soul in the first place. If these words are speaking to something inside you, don't ignore it. Don't rush past it. Don't let the algorithm feed you another 5 videos to distract you from this moment. Sit with it. Feel what's moving. Because something real is happening here. And if you want to stay connected to this level of truth, subscribe to the channel. Let it be a small act of rebellion against all the noise. Let it tell the algorithm that this kind of honesty matters. And if you want more depth, real depth, not surface-level content, check out the Telegram. It's quieter there, fewer voices, more truth. Let's talk about what lives in your body. Not your thoughts, not your plans, not your goals, but the raw, unfinished memories your nervous system still carries. The tension in your chest that shows up when someone disapproves of you. The tightening in your gut when you try to say no. The wave of shame that floods your face when you express anger. That's not random. That's memory. Your body remembers everything the mind tried to forget, and healing begins the moment you stop trying to talk your way out of what your body still holds. This is why most change doesn't last. You can't think your way into freedom. You can't read enough, learn enough, or plan enough to rewire what was shaped by pain. Because pain doesn't live in thought. It lives in muscle, in breath, in posture, in silence. That's why true healing is slow, confusing, and uncomfortable. Because it's not a straight line. It's not about fixing something. It's about feeling what's never been felt. And that takes courage. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that sits with the ache without needing to explain it. You don't have to understand all your trauma to start healing it. You just have to stop running from it. Stop pretending it doesn't affect you. Stop telling yourself it was not that bad, because your body knows the truth. And the moment you allow it to speak, the moment you create space for it to move, shift, release, that's when real transformation begins. Not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped resisting what's already there. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're just waking up in a world that taught you to sleepwalk. You're just learning how to hear your own voice in a system that taught you to only listen to authority. And the more you listen inward, the more you'll realize you were never lost. You were just buried under expectations that were never yours. Not everything you feel is you, and not everything you do is a conscious choice. That might sound strange, but most of your behaviors, reactions, even desires are deeply patterned responses. Responses to fear, to shame, to survival. Think about how often you say yes when you mean no. How quickly you laugh to ease tension. How easily you shrink when challenged. That's not your personality. That's adaptation. And it was necessary once. But now it keeps you stuck in cycles that feel like identity but are actually defense. And if you don't recognize the difference, you'll keep calling self-abandonment maturity. You'll keep calling compliance kindness. You'll keep calling exhaustion strength. There's a name for this: nervous system loyalty. Your body stays loyal to what once kept you safe, even if it's now destroying your sense of aliveness. This is why people return to toxic relationships, why they repeat the same patterns with different faces, why they sabotage peace the moment it starts to settle. It's not weakness, it's wiring. And no amount of willpower or mindset shifting will rewire a system still frozen in fear. You have to go deeper. You have to meet the part of you that doesn't trust safety, because safety was never safe before. To break free, you need to stop trying to fight the pattern and start listening to it. Trace it back. Where did you first learn that being quiet kept you loved? Where did you learn that anger equals abandonment? Where did you learn that showing your true feelings made you too much? These are not random habits. They are strategies that worked in unsafe environments. And the pain you're feeling now isn't proof that you're broken. It's proof that those environments live on inside you long after they're gone. Your task is not to fight yourself. It's to stop living like those environments still control you. The work is simple, but not easy. Awareness without judgment. Start noticing when your body contracts, when your voice changes, when your energy drops. Those are your indicators. That's your internal compass saying, something here isn't aligned. You don't have to react. You don't have to analyze. Just notice. Create space. Let that discomfort exist without trying to fix it. That space between trigger and reaction is where choice is born. And choice is where power begins. Real power isn't domination. It's presence. It's the ability to be with yourself fully without the need to escape, perform, or please. That's what the system never wanted you to learn. Because people who are present can't be controlled. They don't chase approval. They don't beg for permission. They move differently, speak differently, choose differently. And yes, they often lose people. They lose roles. They lose certainty. But what they gain is worth it. Themselves. How do you know if you're living by your truth or still following invisible instructions? The answer isn't in your mind. It's in your body. When you say yes to something, does your chest open or tighten? When you set a boundary, do you feel power or guilt? When you're alone, do you feel peace or panic? These reactions are not random. They are your internal feedback system. But most of us have been trained to override it, to dismiss it, to listen to the outside world more than the voice within. And that's how we lose ourselves, one ignored signal at a time. To start reclaiming that voice, you have to slow down. Not in theory, but in practice. Slowness creates space. And in that space, you begin to hear what's always been speaking. Your own truth is quiet. It doesn't scream. It doesn't sell. It doesn't manipulate. That's why most people miss it. They confuse volume with clarity. But clarity comes from listening deeply, not reacting quickly. That's why silence is sacred. Not because it's comfortable, but because it reveals what distraction hides. One of the simplest tools to reconnect with yourself is this. Ask, whose voice is this? Every time you criticize yourself, every time you hesitate to rest, every time you rush to please, pause and ask. Because often, what we call self-doubt is inherited shame. What we call ambition is internalized fear. What we call just being realistic is someone else's limitation. And the more you start tracing those voices, the more you'll see. Most of them are not yours. You've just been repeating them long enough to believe they are. So how do you know what is yours? Your truth feels quiet, but clear. It might scare you, but it doesn't shame you. It might stretch you, but it doesn't crush you. It might go against everything you were taught, but it brings a strange kind of peace. Your truth has texture, depth, warmth, and the more you make space for it, the less you'll feel the need to explain yourself to people who were never meant to understand you in the first place. This is the beginning of sovereignty, of returning to yourself after years of being lived by systems, expectations, and fear. And the first sign that you're on the right path. You start disappointing the people who only loved you when you were convenient. And that's not failure, that's freedom. So how do you start breaking free from the invisible scripts? First, stop asking for permission to be yourself. The world will never fully approve of your truth, because your truth doesn't serve its control. Start small. Begin with presence. Notice your patterns. When you say yes, ask if you actually mean it. When you feel discomfort, listen before reacting. The goal is not to erase your conditioning overnight, but to become aware of it, so it no longer runs your life in the background. Awareness is the first revolution. Second, reconnect with your body. Sit in silence, even if it's just 5 minutes a day. Breathe without an agenda. Let your system speak without needing to fix it. Ask yourself, is this mine, or was this given to me? That single question can unravel decades of programming. Start writing, not to perform or share, but to hear yourself. Write what's real, not what's polished. And most of all, allow discomfort. It's not your enemy. It's the language of returning. You don't need to become someone else. You need to come home to who you were before the world told you who to be. If that hits something deep, subscribe to the channel. Let's make truth louder than performance. And if you want a quieter space, one where masks drop and honesty speaks, join the Telegram. That's where the real work continues. If you recognize yourself in these words, write in the comments, "I no longer run from my pain." Let's see how many of us are ready to live without masks. Let's build a space for those who choose truth over performance. This isn't the end, it's the beginning. You've followed instructions long enough. Now, it's time to follow yourself.